Then there are the Democrats, beginning with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who slammed the Senate Republicans' health care bill by saying it puts the health of Americans at risk. Take a listen.
These cuts are blood money. People will die. Let's be very clear. Senate Republicans are paying for tax cuts for the wealthy with American lives.
Steve Forbes and Carol Roth are still with us. Steve, it has to be said, this is a week after the Scalise shooting and the shooting of other Republicans. Everybody said they were going to dial back the rhetoric. What happened to Liz Warren? She clearly didn't get the memo.
She did not. She hasn't had it, I don't think, ever. I thought I was listening to Kathy Griffin, as a matter of fact, using that extremist rhetoric. She forgets one little fact among many, David. People who are on Medicaid have no better medical outcomes than those who don't have insurance. This program is an expensive disaster. Quality is going down. Costs are going up. Republicans have a decent plan out there to start to deal with this. But to use that kind of rhetoric has no basis in fact. Pure demagoguery.
Well, and Carol, I remember how Democrats screamed when Republicans talked about the death panels. Remember that? And the death panels wasn't as far as blood in the streets.
Yeah, I think the good news here is that Elizabeth Warren has pretty much no credibility amongst anyone. So her screaming literally bloody murder is probably going to be put to the side. I think that overall, certainly the plan as it stands isn't sustainable. So we know that that isn't workable. We need to have a workable plan. I don't think the plan that has been presented is workable in the fact that it doesn't cover everyone affordably, and have that lead to quality health care outcomes.
Well,
so I agree something needs to be done, but that rhetoric absolutely
that rhetoric
serves no
is too much. But Steve, remember, this is still a draft. I mean, yes, it's going to be a bill, but it's going to look different. Even McConnell said the final bill that they vote on is going to look different. So there's going to be horse trading throughout the next couple of days, right?
There will be, but this bill is an improvement over the House bill.
Right.
It takes care of people 50 to 64 better than the House bill does. So a few more tweaks, and we've got something that's at least on the path to getting us to some sensibility in health care.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. And I just wish, I hope these senators are going to be horse trading and not trying to kill the bill.
Yeah, better is better. All right, American Airlines CEO Doug Parker not happy about the prospect of Qatar Airways planning to buy a 10% stake in the company, saying the approach is puzzling and strange. Steve, a lot of this has to do with this feud that's been going on between the airlines here in America and these airlines in the Middle East, and asking how much the Qatar government controls this airline. They deny it, but then again, how can the airline have this much extra cash around to do this if the government isn't involved in the kingdom? What do you think?
Well, it gets in the whole diplomatic dispute between Qatar and its neighbors in terms of playing both sides of the fence. They're supporting terrorists, and we have a major military base there. So this thing of going after an American Airlines in this case, I think is just part of a bargaining tool to try to get some issues resolved, like being able to use your iPads on aircraft.
Oh, you think it goes to that?
Oh,
I didn't even think about that angle.
Yeah,
that's
I
smart.
think it's all together, and I think it'll be resolved. But in the meantime, Qatar's trying to say, we've got cash, pay us respect.
Yeah. All right. Carol, what do you think?
It does seem a little bit like political trolling, because if you think about where Qatar's airlines are in terms of how they're ranked worldwide, they're very highly ranked. American Airlines, I don't even think cracks the top 20 worldwide. From a financial investment basis, it doesn't make any sense. But from a control basis, having a 10% stake would make them one of the top 3 shareholders, and they could actually, if that were allowed, have a lot of influence at the board level. So I do think that this is a political move, not a business move, and something that potentially is going to be stopped at our government level.
All right, guys.
Back to policy now. When Paul Ryan spoke on tax cuts earlier this week, he mentioned not one word about the border tax. So has he given up on an idea that Steve Forbes has been warning us about from the very beginning, the first I ever heard about it? Steve, has he given it up?
I hope so, and the fact he didn't mention, and also rumors are going around that he's given up on it. However, I've talked to people who believe that he hopes perhaps in the bargaining he can resurrect this thing. He hasn't fully given up on it, but he's been told by his own caucus, by his own fellow Republicans, if this is in the bill, it's dead.
Carol, I know that manufacturers like this idea because they want to sell homegrown stuff understood. But this has gone outside the Beltway. I mean, the Beltway swamp had weighed in. They thought they won one on the border tax, but everybody outside of the Beltway didn't like the idea, and Donald Trump himself said he didn't love the idea, which for him is like saying, I don't like it. What do you think? Does it make it or not? Is it dead?
I think that hopefully it will be dead, because I'm sure you agree, and I know Steve would agree, that you cannot tax your way to prosperity. And this is something that will hurt not only small business owners, but also consumers. What we need to do is we need to stop with the taxes, and we need to flip that on its head and start with incentives. If we have more manufacturing incentives and we can make it more profitable for people to buy those American goods here, that would be a huge boon for small businesses. I work with small businesses all day long that would love to manufacture in America and just cannot do it. So instead of going the penalty route, flip that on its head, create those manufacturing incentives, and it ends up being a win-win for everybody.
And Steve, very quickly, I mean, this was the week when we had Paul Ryan come out just as strong for tax cuts across the board, both individual and corporate tax cuts, as I've ever heard him call for it.
Yes, I think the Republicans are recognizing if they don't get a good tax bill for both individuals and companies, they're going to be looking for new opportunities after next year's elections. So I think that prospect is focusing their minds in a way that, sadly, our great arguments have not.
And finally, Carol, about the market reaction to tax cuts. I mean, I happen to believe that they haven't fully priced in the tax cuts. Once they see tax cuts, I think the market will go higher. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think at this point in time, especially since now we're back to health care and not focusing on that, there is that discount built in. And we all know that if we are able to get those tax cuts, if they are even, I think, half of what potentially could transpire, I think that that's going to be a great thing for the market.
Steve and Carol, great stuff. Thank you very much. Don't forget, by the way, to tune in to Fox News tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern to catch Forbes on Fox. Steve and I are going to be covering all the details behind the White House's push for tax reform. You don't want to miss it. Fun